The Mazda Miata doesn't really have any competitors nowadays. Hold on, Smarty Pants. I know you're about to say the S2000. Calm down, fanboy. I'm talking about cars that's in production now. So there's nothing else on the market that's 2,300 pounds aside from your mother on the bicycle. And if I drove Lyft with my Miata, she ain't getting in this thing because those weight requirements, woo, nope. She gonna have to get a Lyft XL. Drop a comment if you know what I'm talking about with that latest story. But, so this is the Raptor R, she gonna have to get into something like that. But the MX-5 Miata, they do not make anything on the market today. There's cars that are similar, cars that are comparable, but nothing as a direct competitor. Two-seater, ultra lightweight, roadster. So that's what I'm here to talk about, why nobody's making one of these, a true competitor. So the first reason I don't think they have a true competitor is because it's hard to engineer a lightweight car. The lighter the weight, the more extensive the materials are going to have to be. Something like carbon fiber, aluminum, that's costly as opposed to something like steel. So nowadays it's easier to produce a car that, to make more power, to offset the power differences, lightweight is going to give you every dynamic is going to be better. It's going to be more fuel efficient. It's going to be faster. It's going to stop better. But manufacturers today don't care to do the engineering to put all the work and development into making a car that's lightweight. Take for an example, and just because this is here, I got to use it for an example. It's easier to just slap a turbo, or in this case, a supercharger. This is a Raptor R, so it's a supercharged V8, and it is very fast. It's also very heavy, very large, and that's what manufacturers are doing nowadays. It's just simpler just to throw a turbo on the displacement, on the engine, as opposed to the Miata, which is naturally aspirated, than to make a car that's lightweight that can easily be tossed around. Because at 30, these start at about $30,000, and I'd be shocked if they even make a profit on the Miata. So that's what the CX-50s and the 3s and CX-5s are going to be for, so they can build cars like this, a passionate car. The F-150, they already have resources. This is the powertrain from the previous GT500, so it's already there. It's easier just to take the engine, boop, slap it in the F-150, boom, 115K. Whereas the Miata, it's a lot of development that goes into making the car this light, this tossable, this fun, this small. So all of the true competitors are in the past, like the MR2s, the S2000s. There you go. I got you. See, told you I was going to bring up for you. So we got the GR86 doesn't directly compete with the Miata, but it's the closest thing, so people are going to compare those. We got the Lotus Exige and the Elise. Those are probably the two most direct competitors that someone could have bought to a Miata in the S2000. And then we got a bunch of other sports coupes like the BMW Z3. Now they have the Z4, which is now the Supra, which is much heavier than this. The Supra is like 3,300 pounds as opposed to 2,300 pounds. So that's crazy that the Supra is lightweight and it weighs 1,000 pounds more than the Miata. And it's tiny as well. That's crazy. So the Z4 is the same thing as the Supra. And one car that I almost purchased, a car after my own heart, the Jaguar F-Type, which also came in a manual with the V6 or the supercharged V8, which is probably one of the very, very few cars that I was willing to get without the manual. But that car weighs 4,000 pounds in V8 form for a two-seater. That's crazy. So that's what I'm talking about. It's easier, especially the Jaguar. It's easier to just slap something from Range Rover, that 5-liter V8, to throw it on into the Jag. Don't even worry about the weight savings because the engine will offset the weight difference. But then dynamically, that's where you're going to notice the difference in a heavier vehicle. Now, they can do things to mask the weight in cars, but as far as just being outright lightweight on the track, just fun, tossable, you can definitely tell that difference. But with all the technology they have in suspension wizardry and magna rhetorical, I can't even pronounce the word, dampers in cars, magna ride, magnetic ride control, that can hide a lot of flaws that a lot of the higher weight cars can have. And not to be selfish, I'm about to put y'all in the car. I haven't driven this car in like a couple weeks, you know, these other cars around here. So let's jump in the Miata and let's finish this conversation. And how could I be talking about sports cars and not forget to mention some of the best objectively, that is, the 718s, the Boxer, Cayman, is it Boxster? The Boxster, the Cayman, and 911. So that's Porsches, and they are basically known as some of the best affordable, depending on the price point, sports cars. And I'm kind of lumping them all in together, cars with back seats, cars without back seats. But true sports cars would be the Cayman and Boxer, which are arguably, people say that's a better driving experience than the 911 due to the engine placement, which is mid-engine as opposed to rear engine of the 911, and the lighter weight of it. And then another reason, which I believe to be true, they can't make a very lightweight car because they're making all their money on freaking Macans and Cayennes, and the 911, they make their profit on the GT3s. But like the Caymans and Boxsters, I'm not sure. So they wouldn't be able to make those ultralight, and they're sharing engines with the 911, so it costs a lot to develop engines and a lot to develop, like they got 2 sports cars, 3 basically. So it would cost them a lot of money to do so, and that's why I believe a lot of manufacturers aren't designing raw sports cars to compete with the Miata from the ground up, just because of how expensive it is. And it's a dying segment as well. So we lost a lot of coupes, sports cars. So like the Camaros, dead. We got the Challenger, dead, although they do have the Charger in 2 and 4-door variants now, which is an EV with no manuals. What a shame. And do y'all remember the Audi TT? That was another one of the early sports, like in the 90s, I was used to seeing those around. And then they had the TTRS, and then nothing more. So it's a dying segment. And I do want to add that Honda is bringing the Prelude back, which is a coupe, and it does have rear seats. But like as far as 2-seaters go, it's not a whole lot out there. So I want you all to drop a comment of any of these sports cars that I may have missed that aren't here. And I do want to stress the fact that I prefer these with the manual. So if you know me, you know I love my manuals. And some of the sports cars aren't even coming with manuals. The aforementioned Prelude, I do not think is going to come with the manual transmission. The Supra, it did not launch with the manual transmission, and they didn't come out with the manual until like 2023 they came out with the manual in the Supra, I believe. And the Z4 got it in like 24. So that car was on the market for like 4 or 5 years, both of those two, before they even decided to give it a manual. What kind of sports cars are those? And then the next generation of the 718s, which is the Boxer and Cayman, they're going to be EVs. So manufacturers went to caring about speed so much that they forgot about passion in cars. People they enjoy driving cars. And not to say that EVs can't be enjoyable, but they're going to weigh more. Especially, they're going to weigh more than the gasoline counterparts. I'm very certain. I don't know that at all, but I would guarantee it will weigh probably 500 pounds more than the gasoline Cayman and Boxer. So manufacturers, they care about speed so much. That's why you're seeing everything turn into EVs and things are not having a manual. We lose more and more manuals every year. So now the GTI and the Golf R, they don't have manuals anymore. Those cars are known for the manuals, even though the DCTs are much faster, as well as like the 911s. But we got certain cars, the Corvette, they don't have a manual in the Corvette. And I forgot to mention that until this part of the video, another sports car. Like, it's all about speed nowadays, where the base model Corvette is doing 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds. It's all about the speed, the dual clutch transmission. Nothing has a manual. None of your supercars have manuals at all. And let me talk about those for a minute. Now, those are the cars that will have lightweight options, but now we're federally mandated to have hybridization, some form of electrification, to where these cars are no longer in their raw form. Like the next version of the Huracan will be like it's going to drop from a V10 to like a hybridized V8 or a turbo V8. Don't know how I feel about that, but that's not a car I'm looking at anyways, because they don't even have a manual. I wouldn't even bother, even if I had the money. But those cars, those $200,000 cars, the supercars, that's where you see the development into these lightweight, all these types of active aeros. You're going to see the carbon fiber tubs, the carbon everything on the car, the roof, the doors, lightweight, everything, aluminum, everything. And that's something that will be appreciated in all cars. But like I said, it's just easier. Slap a turbo on it, it's faster. People generally don't care about driving dynamics. And that's something that I put my hat off to Mazda 2. Whoop! Not a Mazda 2, RIP to that, because they don't make that anymore here in the States. But Mazda, they actually care about driving dynamics. Their cars have steering feel. This car has steering feel. And another automaker, BMW, their cars don't really have a whole lot of steering feel these days. Like, what happened to the ultimate driving machine? They're very fast. Prime example, the new M5. That thing's going to weigh like 1,000 pounds more than the previous M5. How do you add that much more weight? So it's going to have battery power, like hybridization, it's going to be some form of electrification in the upcoming M5. And the previous generation M5 was already dumb fast, even in the CS version, especially that version. But now they're taking it to a whole new level. And I personally don't think that's a win. It's just too complex. And the weight is just crazy. Mercedes, prime example, the C63. They went from a V8 to a turbo hybrid 4-cylinder? That is a shame. 4 cylinders belong to Miatas, not AMGs, especially the C. So that car is dumb fast, but it's super complex and super heavy. And to me, that's just lazy engineering. And I hate to see it, and I hate to say it, but that's where we are. We're just doing the easy thing. Slap more power on it. And that, my friends, is why you do not see any competitors to the Miata. It's too difficult for the manufacturers to come up with something like this. They don't want to spend the dollars. They're selling a lot of cars, making record profit, and that's why they're in business, to make profit. They do not want to lose that profit on just, they want profit at the end of the day. So Mazda, for making this, I'm pretty sure they're taking a hit to their pockets on building these every generation. And even the next generation, thankfully, it's not going to be a full-on electric car, but it's going to be a hybrid. And I hope they still put some kind of enjoyment in it. Now, see, Toyota's out there, they're trying to make like a manual version for EVs, but hopefully that's good, because Toyota's been on the road with their sports cars nowadays. But Miata, this is why you don't see too many of them. It's just too difficult, too expensive. Manufacturers don't want to do it. People aren't buying these segments. It's just a dying class right now, unfortunately. I can't tell you how many times people have commented and said XYZ car is slow. No matter whatever the power is on it, it's slow. But most people can't even handle the power of the Miata. I get tired of hearing everything slow, where people just don't understand the point of this car is to have a tossable, very inexpensive to own, simplistic vehicle which gives you a smile every day. Shifter, amazing. Pedals, amazing. It's got steering feel, and I drove it back to back with the WRX. Come back here, camera. The Miata has so much more steering feel than the WRX. It's just a better car, super engaging, and I wish more manufacturers tried to hone in on just the driver engagement, involvement, excitement. So 2 more cars I want to talk about that where the next generation weighed more, and I feel like the previous generation would have been the better car performance-wise or dynamically, is the Mach 1 versus the Dark Horse. So the Mach 1 made like 480 horsepower, and the Dark Horse, I can't remember off the top of my head, I don't know, 580? I don't think it's that powerful. 520 something? But that car was more powerful than the Mach 1, but it weighed like 200 more pounds. So dynamically, it's going to be less efficient. It's going to have more roll to it. Now, Ford, they did their thing with their Magna Ride, the version 2 or 3, whatever version they're on. So they were able to mask a lot of that weight. But imagine if they put that into a Mustang that weighed 3,700 pounds as opposed to 3,900 pounds like the Mach 1. That would have been dynamically better. And people might want to argue with me up and down that the Dark Horse is better performance-wise. You put the same tires on the Mach 1 and the Dark Horse, I'm pretty sure the Mach 1 would give the Dark Horse a run for his money. And they're essentially the same car. That's just how important weight is, and nobody seems to care about that. We just add more power. I think it's got like dual manifolds on the new Mustang, so it's going to up the complexity, where the Mach 1 just had just a normal freaking manifold on there. So it's a more simplistic car, and we have to offset the weight by adding more power. And that's what I'm talking about. So that's all I got to say about that. Went off on a tangent. I wasn't even just solely talking about the Miata. I didn't threw strays at the whole industry. But thank you, Mazda, for making the Miata, still keeping it lightweight. And I'm going to just leave y'all with that. I'm going to catch y'all in the next video. Peace out.